In this video, we will be covering the following topics. We will be talking about the DOM, or the Document Object Model. We will be talking about JavaScript objects. We will be covering JavaScript arrays. And we will talk about how do you use the debugging tools in browsers to actually debug JavaScript code. To start off with, DOM refers to the Document Object Model. The Document Object Model describes the structure of the HTML document, or how different elements in a HTML document are laid out and related to each other. The Document Object Model describes the hierarchy of the HTML document and the relationship of each element to elements that precede it and come after it. The Document Object Model is essentially a hierarchy of nodes, and nodes refer to tags or elements in the HTML document. Nodes have different relationships with each other. There are three types of relationships that can exist between nodes. They can be parent relationships, child relationships, and sibling relationships. A parent relationship is when one node encompasses another node or another HTML element. A child relationship is when one node is under or is part of another HTML element. A sibling relationship is a relationship in which two elements are at the same level in the HTML document. Looking at the picture on the right hand side right here, you will see that the HTML element is the parent element of the head element. The HTML element is also the parent element of the body element. The head element and the body element exist at the same level and so are considered sibling elements. The title element is a child element of the head element, or the head element is a parent element of the title element. Now, each of these nodes or elements have properties. Some of these properties can be returned with the use of JavaScript. One of the properties that can be returned is the name of the node or the name of the tag. This is the name property of a HTML tag, and we can use the node name property to actually obtain the name of the node or the name of the element. The node value property returns the value of the node, or really what is present within the tags of that HTML element. There are a couple of different ways for locating elements in a DOM, or a Document Object Model. Two of the most common ones are getElementById. This is a JavaScript element, and within the parentheses, if you specify within quotes the ID of the element you want returned, you will get it back. You can also do getElementsByTagName, and this will return all the elements that are of that specific tag type. One can also write to the Document Object Model. Now, there are two specific functions, document writing functions called write and writeLine, and these will render HTML out directly to the current window. This is a very crude way of writing to the Document Object Model. Some other ways you can write to the Document Object Model are by getting and setting attributes and removing attributes. And again, these are JavaScript functions that allow you to modify attributes of HTML elements. One can also create elements, or create divs, paragraphs, spans, and so on and so forth, links, really any part of the HTML document. You can create elements using the createElement function within JavaScript. Now, once you create an element, you might want to actually add an element, and you can do this by using the appendChild function of JavaScript as well. In addition to adding and creating elements, you can also modify the inner HTML property. The inner HTML property allows you to insert HTML markup and subsequently render that HTML markup. One can obtain the HTML markup by getting the element by ID and requiring the inner HTML of that element. One can also set it similarly. Now, in contrast to inner HTML, we also have inner text. Inner text renders all the content in plain text versus rendering it in HTML. One can modify styles and CSS styles by modifying the style attribute. And so one can modify various aspects of a HTML document using CSS styles as well. Here are some examples. The next important topic that we should consider is JavaScript objects. Now, JavaScript objects are very similar to objects in other programming languages in that they allow us to encapsulate a related set of attributes and methods. JavaScript objects differ from the typical Java class object structure in the sense that one doesn't necessarily have to have a JavaScript class to have an associated object. And so objects can be declared almost on the fly. And so you use JavaScript objects to associate a set of variables or functions together. To create objects, we've got to use the curly braces, and attributes in an object are really key value associations where you have a key, and associated with that key you have a specific value. You can use for each loops to loop through the keys of an object and the associated values with that key. Another important part of JavaScript is the use of JavaScript arrays. JavaScript arrays are similar to other arrays in that they're basically collections to store data. Arrays can be declared in different ways. Arrays are declared either using the new array statement, or they can be declared using the square brackets with values of the array specified within it. Arrays start at position 0 and move up. There are lots of different methods that one can use to add elements to an array. One of which is push. Push adds elements to the array at the bottom, and pop removes the last element from the array. One can also add elements to the beginning of an array and remove elements from the beginning of an array using the unshift statement. There is a lot more detail to JavaScript arrays, and we shall take a look at some of these later on. Errors and debugging are a part of programmatic activity and learning how to work with code. And so we need to be competent, and we need to learn how do we identify errors and debug these errors as we work. The top JavaScript mistakes that most people make. First one, non-closed pairs. Non-closed pairs refers to having mismatched sets of opening and closing parentheses, opening and closing brackets, opening and closing square braces. So one wants to always make sure that for every bracket, parentheses, curly brace that you open, you also close it. Another top JavaScript mistake is the use of quotation marks. Whenever you open a quotation mark, make sure you close it. Make sure you're using the right types of quotation marks. The third mistake is using reserved words, that is keywords within the JavaScript language, like new, as the name of a variable. And one needs to keep that in mind. The fourth JavaScript mistake that people make is confusing equalities, assignment operators versus comparison operators. A single equals is not a conditional. A single equals is an assignment. But sometimes people use it as a conditional when it really isn't. JavaScript is case sensitive, so that's one of those things to keep in mind. One can also make a mistake of having an incorrect path to an external JavaScript file So always make sure your paths are correct. One can also have external incorrect paths within the external file, so that's another thing to make doubly sure. And the last JavaScript mistake that people might make is have to do with variables and functions, making sure variables and functions are defined appropriately within the right scope. There are lots of different ways to debug your code and identify where errors may be. When you are working with a JavaScript application and something that you expect to happen is not happening, one way to debug your code is to use document write or console log functions. The document write function will write something out to the web browser. The console log will write something out to the developer console. This will allow you to check where your program execution is failing. And so by using these functions, one can start identifying what the point of failure might be in any written JavaScript code. One can also view the source file to identify where errors might be. In addition to using document write and console log functions, one does this in conjunction with using the developer tools that are part of the Chrome web browser. One can open up the Chrome console by going to the tools menu and opening up the developer console. And the Chrome console is where one might find the console log and any problematic JavaScript that the browser might have found. The developer tools within Chrome include a lot of features. Some features include allowing you to identify and examine elements within a web page, looking at the different resources that are being used by the web browser or the web page, identifying network connections that might exist, examining the source of the page, examining the timeline or what is happening in the background over time. One can also look at the console and look at any output messages that might have been provided. Some of these features are a little bit more advanced, but more information on developer tools for Chrome can be found at that link. This is just a little bit about the document object model, JavaScript arrays, and JavaScript objects, in addition to some tips on how to debug with developer tools within Chrome. Thank you.